Let's unpack those movements. Chantal Marx, who's the head of investment, research and content at FNB Wealth and Investments, joins us this afternoon. A very good evening, actually, to you, Chantal. And let's start with the JSE. Not a great start to the week, in line with the likes of European markets today. And I suppose a lot of market participants are watching for what central banks are going to be doing in the coming days, but also economic data out of China showing a bit of a slowdown in the world's second biggest economy. What would you say were some of the other major drivers?
Yes, investors are very divided around where China is heading and how that economic growth story will unfold over the coming months. Of course, we are seeing a slowdown in some of the developed markets like Europe and the United States. So economic growth is not going to really be driven globally by those countries or those regions. China, since they reopened their economy in January, really has been touted as where the growth is going to come from. And any sort of doubt or slip up on China's part really puts a lot of pressure on markets globally. I think what we also saw today was a bit of trepidation ahead of some central bank action. As you mentioned, Jerome Powell's going to give his testimony in front of Congress this week, which I think is going to be of vital importance. Of course, we also have local data that will also be coming out later during the week. But also, finally, liquidity hasn't been great today. Volumes have been quite low. And the reason for that is that we have a public holiday in the US. They're celebrating the Juneteenth Independence Day. And we, of course, had a public holiday on Friday. So it's just been a few days of kind of weak market volume.
Does that mean we shouldn't be reading too much into the rand clawing back those major losses that we've seen and it continuing to remain stable over the last few days? Is it because of the holidays that we were seeing, or is the actual strength coming through for the local currency?
No, there's absolutely been some strength and support for the local currency. What we've seen for the rand specifically is that you have seen an actual underlying strength. So last week we had our current account data coming out better than expected in terms of trade. And then you also have portfolio flows looking a little bit better. So there's definitely a lot more interest, both from local investors and international investors in South Africa's bond market, as well as our equity market, just because our valuations have been under a lot of pressure. So we are screening a lot better. We haven't seen massive flows coming through from foreign buyers, but certainly on the local side, when the rand is exceptionally weak, it makes sense to bring some money back from offshore, so sell hard currency, buy rands and buy local assets. And I think that has really driven the rand so far. The rand is also very susceptible to momentum. We've often heard about the mighty rand when you just see months of massive rand strength. And then you have the terrible rand when you just see months of rand weakness. So definitely some momentum also playing a role there, but some fundamental factors also playing a part.
Something that's losing a bit of momentum, Chantal, is the price of Brent crude. Pair that with a stronger rand, and net importers of Brent like us are looking ahead to perhaps lower fuel prices. But your outlook for the Brent crude price, I think there is a bit of worry about the slowdown in economic activity, or the worries around economic activity in China. But what would you say the outlook is for the price of Brent?
So the oil price will continue to be dictated by both sides. The supply side, so OPEC Plus really is a cartel that controls the oil price. And if oil prices get too low, they simply cut production. When oil prices are high, they increase production. And then on the demand side, you have economic growth. Now, that will be dictated, I think, at least in the near term, by whatever happens in China. So when you have a day like today where the dominating theme is that we're concerned about China, you will see some weakness coming through. And then you'll get other data prints that will result in volatility in the oil price. I think at the moment, though, because you have still uncertainty around the Chinese growth story and you have slowing growth in Europe and the United States, you probably have some natural downside pressure on that oil price. But who knows what happens? Who knows what OPEC does? The last time we thought they were going to increase production and they actually decided to cut production to artificially lift the price.
And then finally, some company updates on storage, an interesting set of results. Robust growth, they're going to continue with their aggressive expansion. People obviously needing that self-storage offering that they have with immigration and the like. Your thoughts on the set of numbers that they released today and the outlook despite the tough trading environment?
Yeah, storage put forward a very resilient set of results if you consider that they are basically in South Africa, where we have massive macroeconomic challenges to contend with, and the UK, which finds itself in an equally precarious position. But the really great thing about storage generally is that it is counter-cyclical. It tends to do well when the macroeconomic outlook or the macroeconomic conditions in any sort of geography in which they operate is under a lot of pressure. They always talk about the 3Ds, death, divorce, and disaster, and a massive macroeconomic downturn can probably be classified as a disaster. So they tend to do well during those conditions. And you've got a very solid management team there with a very clear vision. They do things differently than other storage players. They try to be in kind of key business districts closer to where people live instead of on the outskirts. And they've got a good, solid, clean product. And that really, I think, is what came through in this particular set of results.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. Chantal Marx, who's from FNB Wealth and Investments, this afternoon, wrapping up the market movements.